Hi, welcome to MPS Education Roundtable. I'm Tom Salter. Thanks for joining us today, and I'm so excited because our special guest today is Mr. Robert Porterfield, who is the board president for Montgomery Public Schools, and Mr. Porterfield is also a longtime educator, and we're going to get into all that during this program. How are you, sir?
I'm well, Tom. How about yourself?
I'm fine. Thanks a
Great,
lot for
great.
being here. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for the invite. I appreciate coming.
Well, now you've been on the board for about a decade now, right?
A decade,
about 10
absolutely.
years. But before that, you've been in education a lot longer.
All my life.
Let's talk about it. You have degrees in mathematics and chemistry. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct.
And with those degrees, you could have gone to work for Monsanto or any number of places that made trillions of dollars a year. Instead, you went into education. Why is that?
My Lord. Well, as you know, I started out in chemistry. Matter of fact, I was a chemist at Copper's company that was here some years ago. Started out, and I had a brother-in-law who was teaching in Michigan at the time. That's where I started, in Michigan.
Oh, I didn't
So
know
they
that.
came home one summer, and they were talking about, well, we need chemistry teachers, and certainly I found a love long ago with respect to teaching and learning, because we all lifelong learners. And the thing about that, you know, when I first started, you know, I enjoyed working with children, enjoyed working with people, and trying to help them, you know, and certainly thinking that I could help make a difference in their lives, and that's what this was all about. And later on, I came back to Montgomery, and again, I worked on Mr. Carter at the time at Robert E. Lee.
Right.
Did 3 years over there and spent 30 years out at Georgia, Washington. Became a part of the structure out there. When I start teaching children of the children, then it says, oh my God, you've been here long enough. And you know, at the same time, I drove the bus for about 27 years.
Other than us both being handsome, that's something else we have in common. I drove a school bus when when I was in high school. I drove a school bus. It was a great job.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So at Georgia, Washington, you taught mathematics and chemistry?
Not mathematics and chemistry, mathematics and science.
Oh, I see.
I did the earth science and math at the same time.
Right.
We did math, which would cover the general math as well as the algebra. Then we had what you call the physical sciences. I could do that, and because my major was chemistry.
Right.
And as you know, my undergrad, I was a chemistry major and a math minor. But then, you know, as laws tend to have changed, when I started out teaching, you know, if you were getting a master's, then that master's degree must be in the field that you were teaching. So that's inspired me to go into mathematics, and I received a master's in mathematics, and I continue to just love math and science.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, you know, one of the problems we have today in getting teachers are in those specialties like math and science, and it seems that there aren't as many college kids who are interested in teaching anymore, and that's really a shame.
It's sad because right now, as you know, we are short with respect to teachers in those core areas. And when they find that they, you know, it takes a special kind of person to be a teacher now.
Right.
You just can't take, you know, you best know it's a calling. You got to have patience, you got to have a love for children, and certainly those two, without that, you're not going to make it.
No.
If you don't have the patience and love for children and trying to help, to make a difference in their lives, it's not going to work. And then, two, we have so many issues that's coming into the schools from the neighborhoods. And lots of people say, well, I'm not going to deal with that, and rather than I'll go into the business sector because you're not going to have all those issues and concerns.
Right. And teachers have figured out now that they don't get the summer off because they work.
Oh, absolutely.
The best teachers are always in training, or they're always planning new things, and so it's a full-time job, whether it's a full-time job or not.
Absolutely. I can remember when I was teaching now, what I would do, you know, we're off during the summers.
Right.
They had so many fellowships during the summer that I would find me somewhere to go. I mean, they had some offering everywhere.
Sure.
That's how I was able to go to the University of Alabama, University of North Alabama, University of Southern Mississippi, Auburn University here in Montgomery, as well as the one in Auburn. Man, you get so many opportunities to enhance what you're doing, you know, in the educational field. And the one thing I learned long years ago when we started out as a teacher, each year, each summer, we would have do what we would call reformed education.
Okay.
Reformed education.
Okay.
And we are still reforming education. And my question is,
Yeah.
when are we going to get there?
Yeah,
You know?
right. That is frustrating.
Right.
Well, you spent 33 years in the classroom, or behind the wheel of the bus, and doing all that sort of stuff, and then you retired.
That's correct.
And then one day, you just decided.
No, I didn't decide. No,
Okay,
I
how
didn't.
did that
No, I
happen
didn't.
that you
No, I didn't
became a
decide.
board member?
What happened was I had a group of some of my colleagues who were at the house, and we were just engaged in a conversation.
Sure.
At that time, I believe the previous board member was Mr. Spears,
Right.
who was over the district.
Right.
And got word, they said, Mr. Spears is retiring. He's not longer going to be on the board. And because you're retiring, you know, that'll give you something to think you would be a good board member. And I just opened my mouth and said, I believe I can. You know,
that's what got you in trouble.
Well, when I said I believe I can, I didn't know that I was running.
Right.
Until the next morning, the phone started ringing off the hook. It just ring after ring after ring. Said, I heard you're running for school board. I said, I never said I was running for school board. You know, that really, I think it was an act of God, because I never had any idea that I would even think or dream about being a board member. Never crossed my mind about being a board member.
Well, when you walked in the door on the first day after being elected and after being sworn in and all that sort of stuff, were you did you know exactly what you were going to do? And then when you got there, did you find out there was a little bit more to it?
I said, oh my God. Didn't know. I mean, really, you know, you have all these ideas about what you can do, what you want to bring to the table, but you got to remember now, you've got to develop a collaborative effort with all the other board members, because everybody's got an idea.
Right.
But then, you know, once you develop that ability to collaborate with others, then it works out fine. But I didn't know what I was getting into. It's like, to me, at one point in time, I said, well, I've just jumped out the frying pan into the fire, because now, rather than just the children I was teaching, you're taking everyone. It was the children, the people in the community. I mean, everybody down. You got to listen to their issues and concerns, see what you can do to resolve them. And certainly you don't ever know when the phone's going to ring, because it's constantly ringing. Someone's got an issue somewhere about something.
Right.
So and everybody's got an idea about how our education should work.
And if we fix this one thing, then everything else will be okay.
My Lord.
I know that a lot of board members, when they come in, they think, well, they're going to have a lot of control over the budget.
Oh,
but in fact, there's so much money that is designated for specific stuff. There isn't a large percentage of the budget that the board actually has any.
But the board really doesn't have the authority to control that much of the budget, because you've got to remember, when you start looking at the foundation program, those monies are already earmarked before you can even start talking about what you can do with terms of monies that may be available for, let's say, resources that we might need in the district.
Right.
Certainly, when we look at most of the money that's coming in already supporting those employees, we talk about the teachers, the counselors, the principals, and all that. Certainly that's coming from the State Department, because that money is allocated and certainly earmarked. And you must use those monies for what they're earmarked for. Certainly when in the end you don't have much to even talk about in terms of doing some of the critical things that are needed in the district. And especially so since we, Montgomery County, received a minimum amount of ad valorem taxes that are required by the state in order to even participate in the foundation program.
Let's talk about that just a little bit, just in a few words for people who don't understand how it works. Explain how the foundation program works.
The foundation programs is like a match to me. In other words, you must have 10 meals in order that the different teacher units, for an example, based on the number of students that we have in the district. So we earn a teacher unit for each, X number of students.
Right.
So that money must go toward that teacher for that number of students that it has. That's your foundation money. But we only receive that because we have that 10 meals. If we did not have the 10 meals, we would not be able to even support the teachers or have teachers in this district in order to teach our children, because then we could certainly not afford to hire teachers without participating in the foundation program.
Sure.
So certainly when we start looking at Montgomery County compared to even within the county itself, and I use this Pike Road, they recognize that in order to sustain public education, you need to have sound funding. And sound funding for public education comes through by ad valorem taxes or property taxes. They recognized that they needed to increase from a 10 mil, and they're getting something like 25, 27 mils in comparison to the 10 mils that Montgomery County gets, and they are seated within the county itself, but they recognize that. And if we start looking at all of the surrounding counties, and certainly we make a comparative analysis, you'll find that Montgomery County really is at the bottom in terms of supporting public education through ad valorem taxes, which, and I said this early on, yeah, we've gotten enough monies at this point in time to get us through this year, but I'm very, worried about next year, because if there's not an increase in the funding for public education here in Montgomery, then we're going to be in the same fix that we've been in for, I know, the decade that I've been serving on this board, whereby we are expected to have that 1 month's unreserved operating fund balance. But you can't get it with having to do all the things that we wish to do in this district, yet not having the funding to support it.
Well, there's $200 million in deferred maintenance.
Deferred maintenance.
That means we need to do $200 million worth of roofs and air conditioning and other things.
What about the infrastructure? We've got buildings so old until we're not capable of even housing the Wi-Fi.
Right.
And that's critical in this day and time. Right. We should certainly provide those tools that are necessary for children to be successful, especially along the line of technology, because we are moving in that direction. And when we are strapped of funding, we are not able to provide even the textbooks that children need in order to be successful in their classes. So certainly a critical need for increased funding. I don't think people are, I said early on, it's critical that we get more parental engagement and community engagement. I wish they would start attending board meetings so they can actually see what's happening. Some are concerned about what are you doing with the fund, but our funds in terms of how they are spent placed on the way up. Everybody get an opportunity to see the budget for Montgomery County Public Schools in terms of how money is spent, in order to support our vision for Montgomery Public Schools.
Well, going back to parental engagement, some people say, well, I work 2 jobs, or I do this or I do that, and so they don't have time to become involved in their children's education, so to speak. But you don't have to do just doing something simple like when little Johnny comes home from school, asking him, what did you learn in school today?
Oh, absolutely.
Have you done your homework?
Absolutely.
Some of that stuff. If you can, join the PTA. If you can, come to a board meeting or go to. We have a parent day during October where parents can come to the school during the day and talk with teachers and talk with the principal and find out what their child is doing. But even if you can't take off work and do something like that, you can still talk to your child and find out what, and don't accept when you say, what did you learn in school today? And the kid says, nothing.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a general answer a lot of them get.
Right.
But here's the thing, and we do have that problem where some say, well, I'm working 2 jobs, I'm working a job, I don't get off at this time. That's how then we can get what you call community engagement. Now, here's the thing that I tried to, at one point in time, never did get it out there in terms of what we could do. But I believe that if we could get the businesses to get engaged also, in terms of if you got a child that attends Montgomery Public Schools, then let's suppose you would allow half a day each semester for that parent to visit that child's school and be an integral part of that child's educational learning. And I think it could work if we could get the businesses to buy in and say, well, I've got folk that are working for me, have children that are in school. Let's see if we can support them in their efforts to help their children by giving them a half day off per semester to visit the school.
Just to volunteer.
And be a part of the child's education.
That really would be fantastic. Well, what's the thing that you probably, as a board member, and you've been the board president for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What and the vice president before then.
Yeah.
What's the thing that you are the most proud of when it comes
Well,
to
I'm
the
most
board?
proud of the fact that when I came, matter of fact, if you read my biography that I wrote before I even came on the board, you say, write something here about you.
That's
Remember
right.
that?
I do.
I said, well, one thing for sure, if we could provide more programs, we can tap into the hearts of children, and they will be eager to learn. So with that in mind, I pushed, and along with the board members, we were able to get not only more programs, but we were able to get a technical school here in Montgomery at the mall, Impact. And that is, I'm quite proud of that, because then we need to focus not only on those children who are academically inclined that can make that A or that B, but what about that child who's just barely making it, but yet can find something in life that it can do in order to be successful. And that's why we push hard for that technical education to be a part of the part of this district.
I have to tell you, I wish somebody had pulled me aside when I was in high school and told me I could make $100,000 a year as a welder, or air conditioning repair guy, or some of those other things.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are so many opportunities for students who may not like the traditional reading, writing, arithmetic, but who are good at other things and can make a lot of money and have good careers by
I tell you what, call your plumber
yeah.
and see what the price is for just coming out and check. Just to come out is going to cost you now.
Right, that's
Or call your air conditioning and refrigeration man. The air conditioner goes out, you call them out. You got to charge just for coming out.
That's exactly right.
That's a way of making money.
Well, they earn every penny, because I certainly wouldn't know how to fix it. When you think about your time on the board, what have you learned? I mean, I'm sure you were in education for 33 years, so you knew education. But did that really prepare you for being a board member, or were there?
I don't think anything's going to prepare you to be a board member now.
Okay.
Because what you find now, here it goes, and what I've learned now over the years, we're either in a storm, coming out of a storm, or heading into a storm. So you're going to be one of the three. Every day you go, you're going to be in the middle of a storm. You're heading out of a storm for a little while.
Right.
And as soon as you get out, you better know here comes another storm again. So you just have to continue to work your way through.
And why do you think that is? Is it just the nature of the beast? We just have so many. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little flustered here, but at one time I did some research, and with our student body, our employee population, we were the 12th largest city in the state of Alabama, Montgomery Public Schools. If you just look at sheer numbers of people, I think it's probably not that high anymore, but at one time it was. There's just so much going on.
Oh, absolutely. But one thing that we, and I say this often, if there's a failure on the parts of those who take part in public education, if they tend not to be a part of knowing what's going on in public education, then in the future public education will not resemble even what public education was meant to be. That was a free and appropriate public education for every child. And if we don't keep on top of that, I'm afraid that it somehow is dwindling away, because you have so many other avenues that people are thinking about, choice schools, charter schools, but why don't we just give public schools all of the lead way that we tend to use with the charters and things of that sort, and certainly put the money where those children need in public schools, and certainly we can continue to be successful, because research has shown that none of those do any better than public education.
In addition to the fact that you were an educator for more than 3 decades, and now you've been the board member for the last decade, you're also involved in other things that have to do with children. For instance, you're a member of the Montgomery County Community Corrections Board.
I was a part of that when it first started, got off the ground.
Okay.
Montgomery Community Corrections, that it was for you take those individuals who were, we had the problem with overcrowdedness of not only of the let's say prison system, but then your jails were overcrowded.
Right.
So what we were taking a look at were those individuals who are nonviolent offenders, rather than incarcerate those individuals, and you meet them in terms of what their needs are. You had some that were on drugs, which was really the problem that caused them to get into all the illegal acts that they're in. Some were certainly not, had not completed their education. So we had areas for them to get their GED. That was a part of it. You also had a program whereby they could get help with respect to drugs.
Right.
And certainly, rather than overcrowding the jails or those facilities, they could be out working, and rather than being a burden to society, they could be support to society by going out and having a job and helping.
Right. Well, and I guess it's obvious, but there really is a correlation between getting a good education and ending up in prison.
Oh, absolutely. You get a good education, that kind of prepare yourself for the future.
Right.
Without an education, then many doors are closed.
Right.
When you have an education, doors open up with opportunities for you to go in and be successful with any avenue that you may desire or have a love for, and you're working but yet doing something that you enjoy doing and making an honest dollar bill doing it. And rather than, if you're not prepared, then certainly you get out in this world, and everybody has to have in a capitalistic society where we live, you got to have dollar bills. So if you can't do it legally, then what happens is you do it illegal. And that's why we have so much of what goes on for those individuals. Many instances now who haven't prepared themselves then resort to those illegalities.
Well, now that before we run out of time, I want to talk just a couple of minutes about some of the other things that you've done and some of the other things that you're planning on doing now that you're going to be really retired. I mean, you're going from one retirement to another retirement.
Oh, we're going to really be retired this time, because we'll let the others that, you know, I looked at them in terms of what they were saying when I was running this last time, and they said, they ran on and said, expect more. And I looked at that thing and I thought, we've been expecting more for over 10 years. More in terms of funding, we hadn't gotten there yet. No. So what I'm looking at, I hope and pray that they can get more. It's all good to expect more, but can you get any more to support children in their education?
Well, we're hoping that the county commission and the work that they're doing to try to get us some additional ad valorem will help. But I when you talk about you personally, you and your lovely wife Deborah,
yes, Lord.
You had
grandbaby.
Oh man!
Yeah,
and, but is she still going? I know that you go sometimes to some of the schools and help out, like in the gardens and stuff like that. Are you going to still do that, or are you going to hang up your trowel?
Hey, look, I'm getting a bit old for that, because last week I was out there working. And I told you about the bees and the ants that got all over me, and I tell you, it was like a war zone.
I tell you.
But then when you start out there now, I've gotten old to start digging and hoeing, pulling grass and weeds, man. I need help. So maybe you'll join me.
Sure, let me know next time you go. I'll be glad. But that's one of the things that people who are looking for opportunities to volunteer in schools, you don't have to have a college degree.
Absolutely.
You don't even have to have a high school diploma.
Amen.
If you have some sort of skill or just a love for kids, and you want to help out, going and helping with an outdoor classroom, as we call it, where we have gardens and that kind of thing, would be a perfect example.
It would be great. And we welcome all parents to come out, please, and support.
Even if you only have an hour or so a week or a month, even
it would make a difference.
You can
it would make a difference. It would. I promise.
Well, has Deborah got a long to-do list for you?
My God, it keeps that one. and the problem is I don't get around to doing it all some time. So I get a tongue lashing.
After 6 months, you'll get to it, right?
Maybe after 6 months we'll get to it. We'll get around to it.
That's fantastic. Well, what advice do you have? We've got a couple of minutes left. What advice do you have for new board members that will be coming on after the first of the year?
Okay. First of all, and I think it's very critical now that they participate in the duties and responsibilities, and the ASB is going to give them a course.
The School Board Association.
Absolutely. Alabama Association of School Boards, they're going to have to take a course. It's called Duties and Responsibilities of a School Board Member. See, sometimes school board members not recognize what their duties and responsibilities are, and you have to draw a line between getting into operations and as opposed to governance. The
Right.
board stands as in the position of governance. It's not in operations. You have to
Right.
cut the line there.
Right.
The superintendent who leads the district, certainly in the people that works below the superintendent, that's the superintendent's job to deal with all of that.
Right.
But then basically I think some think that they can come in and override what the superintendent, but you got to go through the superintendent. Learning to work too, I think what's going to be significant too for a new board member is to get to know your other board members. And then certainly you want them to trust you, build that trust in you, so that you could have really a collaborative working relationship with other board members, ultimately to reach the goals that you're trying to reach, but you got to reach it as a team. No one person makes up a board. All board members must agree. Well, the majority of the board must agree on any action in order for that action to pass.
A single board member actually has no power
Zero
at all.
power.
Right.
Now, a board member can get out there and say what I'm going to do and this, that, the other, but that goes to moot. It's zero, because you must have a working relationship with other board members, and then they must trust you and believe in what you're saying in order to get anything accomplished. Otherwise, you'll just be sitting there as, just a figurehead.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's important, I think, for board members to be involved in the schools they represent.
Oh, absolutely.
But they have to do it in such a way that they understand that they're there primarily to help with the governance, with the setting the rules, and it's up to the superintendent to make sure that the rules are enforced.
It makes it, absolutely. You're out your lane when you're trying to go into the school and set in rules. You're not to do that.
No.
Matter of fact, I tend to try to go when I'm invited in.
Right.
Because most times when someone see a board member come in and say, "Oh, what happened?" Well, you're not coming here. I'm coming to help if I can.
Right.
I'm coming to support if I
Right.
can, not to come look for dust under the carpet or
Right.
things of that sort.
Right.
Which
Well,
some tend to get that kind of feeling about board members, but certainly we should be viewed as someone that's coming to help resolve, solve, or help you in whatever situation you're in.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have worked with you for the past.
Well, it
10
certainly
years.
has been one for me
And
with you, Tom.
I appreciate you being here today.
I
and
thank you.
we certainly wish you well. And
Oh, yeah.
let me know when you want to go. We'll go get our gloves on and go get in the dirt and help some
Okay.
of those guards.
I don't
okay?
get gloves on. We just work with the
listen,
natural
man,
fingers.
I gotta,
We're going to have to
gotta
work with your fingers.
I got to have gloves.
You didn't see any people in the early days out on the farm working with gloves, did you?
No, sir.
Or
you
they were
didn't.
working with these right here, Tom.
Yeah,
You don't need gloves, okay?
Well, thank you so much for being here
Yeah,
today.
thank you
We
for having me.
appreciate it, and we hope you'll join us next time on MPS Education Roundtable.
Okay,
Have a good
thank
day.
you. You as well, Tom.